Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is the moment of silence to be led by the Board Vice President.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. The pledge will be led by Logan DeMond, 8th grade student at Ernest Childers Middle School.
Please stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I now have a few words to say about my school, Childers. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and my principal, Ms. Burns, for allowing me to speak about my school. It's an honor for me to be chosen to do the same thing a few years ago for my elementary school, and now do the same thing for my middle school. There's a lot of great things going on at Childers this year. We just finished a really successful food drive with Broken Arrow neighbors. Tomorrow we're having our floor hockey game with the Oilers that goes along with it. I think Childers does these fun events throughout the year that keep us students having fun, and that's a big part of what makes our school so welcoming to everyone. Our teachers at school know us all by name and are always doing one-on-one help with us whenever we need it. We have an awesome program for the multi-handicapped students that students get to interact and help out with them whenever we'd like. What I love about our school personally is that there's always something going on to look forward to. There's never a dull week in and outside of the classrooms. Once again, I'd like to say thanks and have a good evening.
Next item on the agenda is the formal adoption of the agenda. There wasn't anything that was brought to my attention.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and second to formally adopt the agenda. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item on the agenda are the November 10th, 2014 regular meeting minutes.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the November 10th, 2014 regular meeting minutes. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Ms. Stites, we're not seeming to get voting buttons here.
My apologies.
No.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next item on the agenda are the November 21st, 2014 special meeting minutes. If there are any questions, certainly would entertain those.
Recommend approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second to approve the November 21st, 2014 special meeting minutes. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Abstain.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next item under summary of awards and achievements, Ms. Shannon Turner.
Hi, good evening. I have the distinct honor, along with Miss Galloway, if you'll go ahead and come on up here, of honoring one of our Margaret Hudson students tonight. So we're going to play a video for you so that you guys can see. I want to save it. I don't want to tell you. It's kind of a surprise. So.
Well, when we got on the bus to get here and she was the only student on the bus, that's when it kind of dawned on me too, was that, wait a minute, where's all the other kids she said was coming?
We have actually been lying. We told them that they were coming tonight to be a part of a bigger, and then we would pick the winners here tonight, and the whole time we knew that they were the winners.
Can I get Kamisha Boykins and Eric McGee to join us up front?
Sun Life Financial, we decided to make a real investment into the cities in our communities that we represent. So we went into Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and we were able to offer 2 scholarships to students who were part of nonprofit organizations who wanted to continue their education.
We would like to commend you both on your commitment to education, to your community, and to let you know that Sun Life will be giving each a $5,000 scholarship for a college.
I don't know, I thought there was going to be a couple of people, and I didn't think I was going to get the scholarship, but I did. So yeah, I'm very excited about it. My mom. It made me feel good, but it was also embarrassing, so. So yeah, she's a really good support system for me. Perfect. Nice. I want to go to Langston for nursing school. She's going to take that and continue on to college and want to be able to help others.
It just kind of opens up another door, maybe not as the biggest of doors, but at least a small door to help them continue their education. By far the best thing that I do all year, absolutely. And we are excited now. They just get to have fun and enjoy the game.
That was the Sun Life Award and scholarship for $5,000, and they presented it. It was kind of a trick that they played, and it was a big surprise. They presented it at the Thunder game. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Galloway now so that she can introduce her lovely student.
Ms. Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board, and to our audience, it is my privilege to introduce Kamisha Boykin. And Kamisha, she's a senior at the Margaret Hudson program this year, and she has a little girl, Carlicia, that's right there in the back, along with her mom, Ms. Boykin, and her brother. And Kamisha is a very good student. She has a heart of gold. She's willing to go above and beyond to help out. She works hard in her studies, and she has been at Margaret Hudson for 4 years, so she has really embraced that family atmosphere that we have at Margaret Hudson. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Ms. Kamisha Boykin.
Yeah.
Where Dr. Mendenhall, she has had several interviews, so she is well versed with interviewing and speaking. So yes, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I think it's a wonderful honor, certainly for her proceeding further in her education, and certainly having the opportunity is a great thing. So thank you.
And I want to share, she did have courtside seats as well, so I was kind of jealous about that. So thank you so much and have a great evening.
Congratulations.
The next item on the agenda is Dr. Rick Dale.
Miss Ellis, will you and your stage crew join us up here, please? Between 1990 and 1996, the one-act play team here in Broken Arrow had 4 state championships. Sometime toward the end of the 1990s, that program was discontinued. As we were preparing to move sophomores up to the senior high school, a suggestion was made to reinstitute that program. Miss Ellis, who taught 6 years at Childers, was Teacher of the Year at Childers, and 6 years at South, agreed to take on the sophomore drama program and head up the one-act play team. Not only did they get it up and running again, but they brought home a 6A state championship for stage crew. Miss Ellis is going to come up and explain a little bit about the program, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dale, for that introduction. I am very pleased and honored to be here tonight to introduce to you all myself, my department, and several of my amazing drama students. I am the sophomore drama teacher at the senior high for the first year, this year, and we took on the one act. To quickly catch us all up to speed on what that entails is the competition is, of course, selecting a one-act play. That has to be cut down to a 45-minute production, and not just the play, and the acting of, but all the set, all the actors, everything is behind a certain line backstage. 3 judges sit out front, and 1 with a stopwatch sits backstage and tells us to go. On go, the time starts. We have to put the set into place, then lights up, perform the show, lights out, set off, all actors, set, and props behind the line inside 45 minutes. A difficult task to begin with, which I made even more challenging by selecting Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I cut into a 45-minute version. And then we decided that we would perform the show on a section of the Globe stage. So Greer Nichols and I put our heads together, and he designed and built the Globe, a 2-story section of what stands in London, Shakespeare's Globe. And so it was a massive set that rolled on and off. It came on at State in 24 seconds and off in 14. It was a sight to behold. So the actors did a great job. We also, first we went to regional competition at Okmulgee. We placed 3rd there, and Caleb Ricketts, if you will stand forward, received an All-Star Actor Award there. We then, we then qualified, of course, for State, and when we competed at State, we had 2 All-Star actors. Again, Caleb Ricketts at State, All-State actor, and Cameron Glass. And then, of the big awards, we walked away with, I believe for the first time ever, because of the combination of amazing costumes, lights, sound, makeup, hair, and of course, the killer stage crew that moved the globe on and off that stage so quickly, we walked away with the championship for 6A, Outstanding Stage Crew and Tech for the one act. So for our first crack at it, not too shabby. I would like, thank you. Before we walk away, we are represented here by some amazing kiddos. They represent themselves and our department extremely well, and I would like them to project their voices and introduce, say your name and what crew position you held, and then we'll get out of here.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Collins, and I was Assistant Director for the Midsummer Night's Dream. Hi, I'm Taylor Sorrell, and I worked on lights and hair makeup. I'm Rhiannon Stone, I was Stage Manager.
I'm Toby Westhoff, I was on the centerpiece set crew.
I'm Eric Baker, and I did sound.
I'm Morgan Jensen, and I was on stage crew. I'm Sydney Griffin, I was on the left of the set. One set. I'm Erin Raven, and I am on the curtain for the crew. I'm Elizabeth McAfee, and I was on stage crew. I'm Angelica Augers, and I was hair, costume, and makeup.
I'm Natasha Colon, and I was a state manager.
I'm Caleb Ricketts, and I play the role of Peter Quince.
I'm Tammy Glass, and I played the role of Helen.
I'm Jeremy Avey, and I work on stage right.
The actors always get the glory, so thank you for allowing us to come and give a little bit of that to the crew. Thank you.
Great job. Congratulations. Great job. Great job. Good job. Thank you. Great job. Good job. Congratulations. Great job. Great job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Congratulations. 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 Great job. Great job. It's a whole bunch of firm handshakers going through there.
Next item.
Mr. Davis, will you and the drum majors join us, please? Soon after taking this position this summer, one of the first things I got to do was sit down with Mr. Davis as he was being interviewed by the Tulsa World. And the reporter asked him, he said, "What are your goals for this fall?" And he said, "It's not about points or trophies or championship. It's about student engagement. It's about teamwork. It's about building lifelong relationships. It's about creating an environment that will allow students to do something the very best it can be done." And so we're going to play you a short clip, and then Mr. Davis is going to come up and talk about this fall.
We're waiting to go on field for Grand National Finals. Put out the best show we've had all season. This year it's been amazing. We didn't come last year, and to come this year, this is my first year as a drum major here, so it's spectacular.
Jump on that one. I need a couple more. Go. Don't follow in the same path.
My favorite part of the show is the end of our arrival set in the ballad. It's just really emotional, moving. It's beautiful. Our show is meant to be a work of art. It's interpreted a million different ways, and that's the beauty of it. We've rehearsed it a million times. It's been perfect at different sections. I hope we can bring it all together and leave the field with no emotions left.
Joining us from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, please welcome the Broken Arrow High School Marching Band.
What our show means to us may not be what it means to you, the viewer at home. We have a concept that we use in-house that is a storyline and a sketch for our students and our staff. But I think the point of any production is to leave an abstract interpretation open to the viewer. When you go to a museum and you see two different paintings, what do you get out of those paintings? Which of those speak to you more? And I think that's the intent behind our program this year. The Grand Nationals event is first and foremost, it's about creating an unbelievable environment for kids to showcase them at their very best. Regardless of your school size, regardless of your resources, the Grand National event makes every student feel like a rock star. And that's what makes this event so attractive. There's so many bands across America. And that's the attraction to the Broken Arrow Band. That's why we want to come back to be a part of this as often as we can. with any band, the biggest hurdle we have to overcome is we had a significant graduating class from a year ago that leaves holes that this year's students have to step up to create their own identity and become their own ensemble from the previous year. And I'm very proud of what our students have accomplished, and they've done a great job of that.
The Broken Arrow High School Marching Band.
I think we, as a whole group, did the best we've ever done. I think we all pulled together as an ensemble, and we showed the crowd what we wanted to show them for the whole season.
Just in awe of my last 4 years at Broken Arrow, and just remembering everything that I've done with the band, and just in love with our last show, my last show. It's not about winning or a placement, it's all about just being together as a big family and putting on a great show for everybody.
Yeah, I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of those kids. From first audition to last performance there at Grand Nationals, there's been nothing but hard work from those kids all season. They're led by our three drum majors here. This is Ryan Sixsmith, Blake Thompson, and Brody Branson, our three drum majors. And couldn't be more proud of these gentlemen either, and how they set a great example, I think, for our program. What you saw at Grand Nationals, 100 bands from across America. Of those 100, they became pared down to roughly there's about 32 bands that advanced to the national semifinals. Out of that, they announced a championship for each of the 4 different classifications they do for Bands of America, and we were awarded the Class 4A National Championship. And advanced with 11 other bands to the national finals, and we finished second place in finals to Tarpon Springs from Florida, who's in a different classification. We scored a record high score for the Broken Arrow Band. We scored a 97 out of 100, and our friends from Tarpon Springs scored a 97.15, 0.15 of a point. And so what I love about that little video is the comments you heard from students. Those were all pre-awards, and they really do mean that it's not about a placement. It's about doing the best that they possibly can, and whatever happens after that certainly does. You know, the hard work that I think our kids do, it will serve them well beyond their high school years in life with some of the life lessons they do, and trophies are just kind of a byproduct of that hard work and that committing themselves to greatness. So with that, I present to you our 4A national champion, Pride of Broken Arrow.
I would like to say before we shake your hand, I tell you, I got a chance to experience it firsthand, and I tell you, it is one of the very best things we do. If your child wants to have a career in anything in music, or anything that wants to be a part of something special, this is the group to be a part of. I can tell you that I have never been a part of a group that is so organized, works so hard, so polite. They're just a great group of kids, but also the base of community support, the parents, all of them, they all travel together. If you can imagine, just feeding 250 people is a chore in of itself, and it's like they absolutely have no problem doing any of that. I was very, very impressed. I will tell you, Mr. Davis, I was so proud to be the superintendent of Broken Arrow. When you walk in the place, you are the rock star, because if they know you're from Broken Arrow, I was wearing my my shirt, and had numerous people stop me, and wow, I mean, talk about big time. Broken Arrow represents not just Broken Arrow, and really represents Oklahoma and represents this region. So very, very proud of what you've done. But more than that, Mr. Davis, I'm proud of you, proud of what you've done, because I tell you, I know that you inherited a great program, but only great programs, you got to continue to feed them. And you have done that and actually have excelled or exceeded all expectations. So don't ever forget that, yeah, you've been a part of a special program, but it takes a lot of talent, a lot of leadership. He's one of the very best leaders we have in our district, adult leaders. So very, very proud of what he's done and proud of this program. So thank you. Gentlemen, I'd like for, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know every one of you. I want to know what you're going to do with your life and where you're going to go to school. So go ahead and step up and tell us who you are and what you're going to do.
I'm Ryan Sixsmith. I was the head drum major this year. I'm a senior. Next year, I'd like to start my first year at the United States Military Academy at West Point, join the Army, and serve as an officer in the Army for a career.
That's a pretty lofty goal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, come on up.
Hello. Hello. I'm Blake Thompson. I was one of the assistant drum majors this year. My plans are to become some sort of chemical or technical engineer / a music major of some sort. Haven't really decided yet, but that's about it.
He's a junior.
Hi, I'm Brody Branson. I'm also one of the assistant drum majors, and I plan on going to OSU and majoring in oil and natural gas.
Now you understand. We're being led by some of the very finest young men and young ladies, and just very proud of each one of you. So if you'll kind of come across, we'll shake your hand and congratulate you.
The young man going to OSU, he probably should be drum major next year. Just throwing it out there.
This week, everybody wants to be drum major at OSU.
The next item on the agenda is under employment, Dr. Mendenhall.
That didn't get very many laughs, did it?
Got too many Sooner fans in
Yeah,
here.
there's too many Sooner fans, that's right. Well, you know, I tell you, I have a great privilege tonight to really bring to you two recommendations, two fabulous individuals. The first one is a recommendation for an assistant director of human resources. We recently had a resignation. Celia Armstrong has taken another position. She went to BOK, and so we're very excited for her and her career and moving on. But with that, we had a huge void. So after having a lot of discussion with Mr. Fager and myself and others on cabinet, we really began to evaluate kind of where we were. And one of the people in what I would even call somewhat of a backbone of our organization in HR has been Adrian Stout. Adrian has been an HR coordinator for the last couple of years and has really done a great job. And we felt like promoting her into an assistant director's position and becoming an administrator was the right thing to do. Let me tell you a little bit about Adrian. Adrian is a Broken Arrow product. She graduated from Broken Arrow High School. She went to NSU and graduated in 2010. Upon her graduation, she went to St. John Health System and worked there for 3 years, and then actually came back here to Broken Arrow and has been here really ever since, I believe, 2011. The good thing that I will tell you is Adrian is one of those individuals that really understands our culture. She actually, as a high school student, was actually in our HR department as an intern. So she totally understands kind of where we come from and how we've kind of evolved over the years, and really feel like that she will bring a lot of value and knowledge to the position. So tonight I'd like to recommend to you Miss Adrian Stout to be our Assistant Director of Human Resources.
Okay, any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to offer employment to Ms. Adrienne Stout to serve as the Assistant Director of Human Resources. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Ms. Stout, would you please stand? We can recognize you. And yes, she is not a student. She's not a student. She does such a great job. She's kind of the go-to person in HR, so we're very happy for her and happy that she's in this position. The next position that you have tonight that I bring to you is a recommendation for our assistant principal at Ernest Childers Middle School. If you recall, we had a little bit of movement at the very beginning of the school year, and kind of let me be patient as I walk through this. But really, what we had was Mr. Randy Craven took another position at Tulsa Technology Center, and when he left, we left a big vacancy and void. In that process, we began to interview, and we found that Lance Crawley, which was the principal at Linwood Elementary, was a great fit. And so we offered him that position, and he accepted. And that left a vacancy at Linwood as an elementary principal. Well, we moved to really, Chris Inkland was one of the people that had really interviewed for a lot of our elementary positions and had been an assistant principal at Ernest Childers. We have since placed him as an interim at Linwood, leaving a vacancy at Childers. And I know that seems like it's kind of like follow the bouncing ball, but this was an interesting process. We went out for interviews and began to interview. I think we wound up, Ms. Burns, I think, went through 14 or 15 different interviews. And at the end of the day, she said that she had someone that she really needed me to talk with. But the interesting thing was I was going to have to talk to him through Skype. So as those of you that know how technologically challenged I am, know that had to have been quite a process. It actually was smooth. We had a monitor, and I could see him, and he could see me, and we just had a conversation. I was like, wow, I didn't know this worked. And they said, yeah, we've been doing this for like 15 years. And so I learned something new, and I learned that I really enjoy talking to Mr. Shannon Smith. Shannon Smith is in South Carolina right now. He is a teacher at a school there, has been there for 11 years. Previous to that, he is actually from Broken Arrow. He has Broken Arrow ties, parents, family lives here. Actually taught at North Intermediate for a period of time, and actually we have some people still in the district that actually taught with him. So he's actually coming home of sorts, and felt very good about our conversation. And so tonight, what I do is I'm going to recommend Mr. Shannon Smith to you as the assistant principal at Ernest Childers Middle School.
Questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second to offer employment to Mr. Shannon Smith to serve as the assistant principal at Ernest Childers Middle School, with such employment subject to a mutually acceptable and fully executed written contract of employment. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next time are the comments from the public. Seeing that we don't have any, we're going to move to the next item, which is the general consent items 13 through 22.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the general consent items 13 through 22. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item under Human Resources, Mr. Ed Fager.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board.
I've got several policies this evening that are being brought back for second reading, and a motion to approve or disapprove each of these policies. The first one is item number 23. It's policy number 1140 concerning officers on the board. Policy 1140 is being revised based on the passage of some new legislation that requires additional election paperwork from members of the board. It imposes a duty on the board clerk to maintain these records for a minimum of 4 years, and also designates these records as open public records.
Any questions? This is an action item.
I recommend approval. Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 1140, Officers in Section 1. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The next item is policy number 2140. It's item 24 on the board agenda. This policy is also being revised as a result of the same legislation. This is actually part of our production of public records, so this is the open records policy and how it was affected by this legislation.
Any questions on this item?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 2140, Production of Public Records in Section 2, Community Relations. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Okay, the next item is number 25. It has to do with policy number 2170, which is tobacco on school district property. This policy is being revised to expand the definition of tobacco products to include vapor products, such as e-cigarettes, the cartridges, the liquids, all of that that's involved in those new products that are hitting the market. Again, it was revised on the basis of new legislation that was passed in the last session.
Okay. I would entertain any questions you have.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 2170, Tobacco on School District Property in Section 2, Community Relations. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is number 26. This has to do with policy number 2180, the use of school facilities, which is being revised to reflect changes resulting from the passage of House Bill 2496, which allows individuals who have a, well, let's see, it's actually being revised on the basis of a couple of different laws. One allows individuals to bring inoperable weapons to the school for the purposes of like assemblies and things like that. The other is House Bill 2614, which allows individuals with a valid concealed carry permit to have a handgun in their car in a school parking lot, as long as if the car is left unattended, that handgun is concealed and locked up.
And these are due to laws that were passed by our legislature, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Questions on this?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 2180, Use of School Facilities in Section 2, Community Relations. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is number 27. Involves policy number 4320, which is the Student Code of Conduct. And again, these revisions are based on the addition of vapor products such as e-cigarettes as some of the banned items. Also, the House Bill 2496, which allows the inoperable weapons. So something like an ROTC or something like that could bring inoperable weapon for use in assemblies.
Okay. Questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 4320, Student Code of Conduct, in Section 4, Students. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Okay, the last item I have tonight is number 28. It involves changes to policy number 5350, which has to do with the suspension, demotion, termination, or non-reemployment of support employees. Several laws affected this particular policy. Senate Bill 1602, which is the vapor products. So we're expanding the prohibition of vapor products, which would impact employees as well as students. House Bill 2505, which incorporates some new language, which will make it easier for the district to show misconduct on the part of an employee if we challenge an unemployment claim. And then House Bill 2614, which has to do with having a handgun in a school parking lot.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed revisions to Board Policy 5350, suspension, demotion, termination, or non-reemployment of support employees in Section 5, employees. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Ms. Shannon Turner.
President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. I come to you tonight and ask if you approve the new agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Shannon Barnett for tutoring services for the Creek Nation JOM Language Challenge Bowl. Total cost for these services is $25 per hour, and that's paid for out of the federal grants.
Any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the new agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Shannon Barnett for tutoring service for Creek Nation JOM Language Challenge Bowl. Total cost for the services is $25 per hour and will be paid from the Title VII and JOM federal grants. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item, Ms. Gina Taylor.
Dr. Mendenhall, President Kelly, and members of the board, I cannot tell you how excited I am to talk to you about this tonight. So you'll have to indulge me with this because we didn't have subcommittee, so I wanted to have a chance just to talk with you a little bit about read and write for Google. We are looking at making a motion to approve or disapprove the purchase of the Read and Write Google extension. Right now, technology is making such a huge change in the world of individuals with disabilities, and we are so excited about our technology initiatives like the one-to-one initiative for our district. And so super excited about this idea of a Chrome extension, a Google Chrome extension that provides reading and writing and studying and organizational tools to support web files from a Google Drive. So this extension would actually allow students to have any text document read to them in various voices using the system's functional tools. They can actually support their literacy development. Additionally, there's speech to text and text to speech and word prediction. Direct language literacy, which is obviously a great support for our English language learners. Just picture dictionaries. I can go on and on about the incredible extended use of Google that would be open to all of our students, not just students on IEPs. It is typically directed or marketed towards students with disabilities or language learning issues. However, all students could benefit from being able to have the text read to them. There's many students that often need have an accommodation for text being read to them in the class. So instead of having a paraprofessional take the time out to go and read this test to them, they could use this Google Read-Write extension that would read it to them. So very exciting opportunity for us to bring this to you tonight. So we're looking for a motion to vote to approve or disapprove the purchase of the Read and Write Google extension in the amount of $27,300.
Ms. Taylor, can you
Yes.
tell me, will this come from the general fund?
It is from General Fund Special Education
That-
152.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I needed to know. Any other questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the purchase of Read and Write for Google extension in the amount of $27,300. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item under Administrative Services, Mr. Ken Ellett.
Good evening, Ms. Kelly, Board, Dr. Mendenhall. Tonight I've got here to ask the Board to accept or approve a generous donation by Broken Arrow Electric Supply. They have donated that to the Broken Arrow School District and would like to earmark it for a wrestling program to use for travel to Ohio or to pay for state championship rings. So I'm here tonight to ask you to approve the acceptance of that check.
Mr. Ellett, since I've been on the board, very few times that we see a donation of this kind to the athletic department. Is it kind of out of the ordinary as it relates to someone contributing $3,000? I mean, I think it's a special thing. I'm certainly very appreciative of it. I just thought maybe you could give us a little bit of insight there.
The gentleman that donated this is an alumni. He's an old Broken Arrow wrestler and is very supportive of the program and the coaching staff and likes the direction they're going and just wants to help. And we don't get a lot of these. We don't solicit them as we did in this one. It came to our doorstep and we said we'll take it if we can.
Any questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the donation of $3,000 from Broken Arrow Electric Supply to Broken Arrow Public Schools. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item, Ms. Carla Dias.
Good evening, Dr. Mendenhall, President Kelly, members of the board. I have two items for you tonight. The first one is a motion to approve or disapprove an agreement between Broken Arrow Schools and the Assembly. The cost of the district is for $300. It's for Liberty Elementary fifth grade students to use that venue for their fifth grade musical.
I have a question on that. As far as space, obviously we're fairly limited since we have the PAC, which is probably booked, and then we have the North Intermediate. So this is a case where we don't have enough space potentially at that site, and so it needs to move off-site, correct?
Correct. With the number of fifth grade students she has, and both parents will come, and grandparents, and aunts and uncles, it's just the sites have a lot of the facilities there, but it's going to be a big crowd. Everybody comes.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the new agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and the Assembly of God. The total cost to the district is $300. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next one is a motion to approve or disapprove an agreement between Broken Arrow Schools and the Teachers Discovering Traveling Exhibits. It's an art exhibit of Vincent van Gogh's artwork to be displayed at Country Intermediate for about 6 weeks. The cost of the exhibit, it states $1,410, but it actually gets reimbursed through a grant through the Assistant League of Tulsa, and they've done this for quite a few years, and it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Any questions on this?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the new agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Teachers Discovery Traveling Exhibits for an art exhibit to be displayed at Country Lane Intermediate. The cost of the exhibit is $1,410 and will be reimbursed by a grant through the Assistance League of Tulsa. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chuck Perry.
President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board, we thought last year For graduation, we had a new venue, the BOK Center, and we just thought it was a wonderful night for our students, for our patrons, parents. Hope the board felt it was a night that really honored the students and a culminating event of that magnitude. We felt like the BOK Center really showed off our students in a great way. The BOK Center has been nothing but great to work with this past year. They've been very accommodating. They give us a rate of about 30% of the cost, according to their figures, what they normally take in to open the door for an event of our size. I would like to report that all the feedback from last year was very positive. We did not have to turn people away. We had a venue that gave seating to all the grandparents and aunts and uncles and friends and family that wanted to come to that last year. We would like to recommend that we hold the graduation this coming year, again at the BOK Center. We are looking at May 19th, which is a Tuesday night. I know the night seems a little bit odd, but we have to work around their schedule somewhat to find a night that doesn't conflict with their activities, but also does not conflict with ours in regard to state championship athletic events during the spring. So by the 19th, all of our events should be finished at that point, which will allow all of our students to come and be a part of graduation. So again, I ask for your vote to make this a reality again for the second year in a row.
Mr. Perry, I have a question. Does this contract extend us anything different from last year's contract?
It's basically the same thing. We'll have a few other small items that deal with security and talking with Ms. Renz and Mr. Jadamski. We may have confetti again and some cleanup fees that are very minimal, but the contract as a whole is the same as last year.
Any other questions?
Mr. Perry, will they be providing some sort of way to purchase a refreshment for the people in attendance?
We will have the concession stands open this year. That is the plan. It probably will not be full concessions.
Right.
We're just
Some
looking
water or something.
at water right now because we want an atmosphere that's somewhat a formal event conducive to the magnitude of a graduation. So that is the plan. Again, we have a lot of things that we'd like to improve on from last year, small things that I think will make it even greater this year.
Other questions?
Recommend approval. Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the use license agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and SMG for the facilities at the BOK Center for the 2015 Broken Arrow graduation ceremony scheduled for May 19th, 2015. The total cost is $35,000. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is something I'm very excited to talk with you about tonight. This is an information item in regard to a JROTC, or Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps program at Broken Arrow High School. The high school has been, or as a district, we have been talking about introducing a program like this for as far back as Mr. Blackburn will speak here in a little bit. As far as 10 years ago, we have been in contact with the Marines, Air Force, Navy, and have discussed with them what it would take to bring that to Broken Arrow High School. They have said that the southeastern part of the United States is very overpopulated with JROTC programs. And if anything, they want to expand to some places out west and other places. The good news is they have introduced a new program, the Air Force has, called the NDCC program, which is the National Defense Cadet Corps. And the biggest difference between that and the JROTC is the funding mechanism. If it starts out as a pure JROTC program, the funding for the instructors and the startup costs, the Air Force would take on part of that. With the NDCC program, that responsibility is back on Broken Arrow Public Schools. This has been done many times across the South, Texas, and all of those programs that have started out with an NDCC program within several years have received a full-fledged JROTC program. There's no guarantee of that, but we felt like as a district we have our 3 goals of literacy, engagement, and graduation, and this is a true reflection of engagement to me. We would like to start out our first year with about 100 students, and we really think deep down that that will explode. We have a community that is very supportive of the military. We have a program that really attracts students that aren't typically involved in other school activities. We think this will reach out and expand our goal of 100% engagement across the high school. This first year is where we'd like to bring it is the 15-16 school year and introduce it to 10th through 12th grade with the possibility in coming years introduce it to the 9th grade also. Mr. Blackburn has been the point man to head this up, and I'd like him to come forward. You've received some documentation on the cost and startup costs, so I'll let him go into greater detail.
Good evening. Good evening. As you can tell, the initial startup fee, as far as what we are projecting, is $175,000. Although that is a very large sum of money, you do need to understand that the largest component that we will be responsible for is the salaries of the non-commissioned officer and commissioned officer, both retired individuals. Those numbers could change depending on the individual that we hire in regards to their retirement, because we will pick up whatever's on the back side of their retirement. So the numbers are a little bit fluid, and I also aimed a little high just so that we wouldn't have any surprises down the road. In addition, equipment-wise, if this is, again, this is completely fulfilling all of their needs, roughly $35,000, as you note there, to take care of any type of activities that they would like to do as far as parade, regalia, practice rifles, etc. The interesting thing about the ROTC program is all of the extracurricular activities that they provide for their students, which will allow them to be on teams and to go into competitions. Part of that fee that you see there is in reference to equipping them to be a part of this very, very quickly. In talking to Major Bailey and Colonel Gesh, who are the 2 individuals that have been helping us out through this process, they were very surprised in the fact that we are willing to put forth the efforts that we want to get the Air Force here, and they were very thankful because they, basically their words were, by us putting forth this effort, they see that this program being very successful very quickly. Whereas when they have programs that are established in other sites, they've had to grow them at a slower pace. They do feel like that our initiative that we're trying to do, they're really looking forward to this program being created. In addition, or the final thing that you see there is facilities. Some of this is basic expense that we would put in any classroom, but I went ahead and included that in the overall total. As you look down below, some of the interesting things about the curriculum that they provide, not only is it the leadership that can come from an ROTC program, and building young women and men as they move out into the world, is the elective classes that they provide in regards to aerospace, aviation history, science of flight, exploration of space and astronomy, and a number of other courses that students will be exposed to. Obviously, the leadership in education that they have, not only just the courses, but apparently in talking to them, it is a great expectation that these individuals go out and do community service. And depending on the division that they have and the leadership, many of these students are required over 100 hours of community service, which falls in line with what's been going on at the high school in the past few years. The last thing I would like to point out is what's the advantage to the students after they leave. Again, this is not a recruiting tool, so I want to make sure that people are aware of that. Although students do have the ability, if they want to go into the ROTC program into college, they have opportunities for scholarships, as well as waiving a certain amount of credits in college. But more importantly, what they can gain is the leadership skills and going into the community and opportunities for scholarships after high school.
Other questions?
I would just like to comment, I really appreciate you guys really pulling this information together. I think this is a great program that, you know, it's near and dear to my heart. I know. I'm honored to be able to be part of a district that is going to possibly look at offering this to students that, you know, it's just another reflection upon our district that we're willing to step out and really lead for our children and for giving just another alternative approach to bringing up new leaders in the district, in the school program, and just being able to teach them to grow up and be community leaders and to grow on with their own life. And so I commend you guys on a great job putting this information together. I'm excited and just thrilled to see this.
I will say, Dr. Mendenhall and I have had many conversations, Mr. Blackburn. It just makes sense that Broken Arrow have a JROTC program to me. And we would like to gather some more information, have a contract with them in place, and bring that to the January or February board meeting for a recommendation that we do fund the program. We'd like this to be a part of the high school course book as they put that together, so students will have the opportunity to actually choose this as an elective class. And again, it would be a class during the day in addition to co-curricular activities after school, before school. Again, we might have them at football games with the colors, and again, doing many community service events all across Broken Arrow.
Mr. Perry, I do have one question related to the program itself. Initially, we would start with approximately 100 as a goal, but I'm assuming that that would grow.
Our plan is for it to grow greatly over the next 3 to 5 years. There is some requirements and as far as the instructors. If we hit, I believe, 185, we would have to add another instructor, but we hope at that point we would have some funding from the Air Force so that they could help us out with hiring the instructor. I really think the sky's the limit. There's academic bowls you can go to. They've got remote control airplane competitions they go to, marching. It's just be a part of that family. I think students will get a lot out of that.
Mr. Perry, is this program, is it anywhere linked to the Air National Guard that's out, or out at just north of the
I don't
airport?
believe so. We have not had any discussions with them at all. It's been with the national JROTC group.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Perry, is in the intent to offer these offers in 2015 school year in the fall?
Correct, the 15-16 school year. We would like to put it in place.
What's the process of recruiting kids, I guess, so to speak, to this type, or making them aware of this type of offering?
That would involve the high school and getting that number one in the course book, and have counselors be talking with students as they start to enroll. We need to advertise this in our daily announcements, maybe put it on the Pulse, our weekly video announcement show at the high school, and really push it. Obviously, we'll have to push it at the 9th grade academy for those incoming sophomores. So it's a lot of recruitment and advertising on our part.
I think the bottom line is the hiring of the staff. I mean, when you hire good folks that will come in and really, and we call them kid magnets, those guys that come in and really, you know, are able to promote and market their program. And so it'll be very key, I think, to hire our commissioned officer and then non-commissioned person as quickly as we can so that we can get them in place.
Have you all recognized facilities already?
Well, that's partly why we tonight are not bringing this as an action item, because we do have some work to do on our end. We have just, again, it's been a process over the last couple of years talking with them. We will have to do some work with Ms. Bergwall. We've looked at Westwood, some other places around the high school campus as a good home. They need a place to march. So we have not nailed down anything yet in concrete.
Just to add a few other things, the reason why we're moving so quickly, other than the course guide, as Dr. Mendenhall stated, was in February they actually put out to all their retired officers the sites or locations that they're either opening up or that they have vacancies. And so if this is something the board would like for us to do, if we move to approve in January, then that would allow us to have a better pool of candidates to actually go out and interview.
One last question. In regards for interviewing the candidates that are going to be the leaders in this program, is that a panel interview? How are you all, can you expand upon that if you have some ideas around that? It may not be concrete now.
I don't know anything directly. Major Bailey, who we spoke to, first off said we will probably get the pick of the litter with the Broken Arrow would be well known and in a place that some of the top instructors would want to be at. They take the groups that do apply, they go through an interview process, and then they would be recommending 4, 5, or 6 to us, from what I understand, and then we would be interviewing. I'm sure it'd be Miss Renz and a team with her, me, Mr. Blackburn, to find the person that's the right fit for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other information or questions on that. We'll move to the next item.
The next item is asking recommendation to approve the 2015-2016 instructional calendar. Last month I brought to you information on our instructional time task force, and part of their work has been to develop the calendar for next year. The major thing that came out of it, or the consensus, was overwhelmingly to pretty much replicate this year's calendar, and we've held that several years in a row now. We feel like it's a good fit for the district. We don't hear a lot of negativity about our calendar. We did have 2 questions that we looked at in regard to parent-teacher conferences and how to best hold those, and our second semester professional development. We did put out a survey to staff to get their feedback on that. We had over 900 responses, and those were to keep it the way it is this school year. So if you look at the calendar, it pretty much mirrors this year, just off a couple days here and there, but the holidays and vacations and stuff are pretty similar.
One of the things that I certainly want to highlight is I do appreciate, and I know the community appreciates, the communication on the calendar for snow days, what the expected, if you don't have any snow days, what the expected last day is, if you miss 1, if you miss 2, if you miss 3. I certainly think that helps them plan better, and certainly our staff too. We need to be respectful of everyone within our community.
I would agree, and the way the calendar falls this coming year actually gives us more time on the backside that allows, if snow days do occur, so that doesn't roll over into June. Also, we're on an hours as the consent agenda voted tonight, as opposed to days. So the 1,080 hours gives us flexibility to add minutes to the school day, as we did last year, instead of adding just set number of days after our targeted end date.
Other questions?
Mr. Perry, what's our last day of school this year? I mean, is it pretty close to what?
May 22nd.
So we're having graduation pretty close to.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. That is if we don't have any snow.
I would.
Do not anticipate it.
If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the proposed 2015-16 school year instructional calendar. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
I wanted to bring to you again some more work that our Instructional Time Task Force has been concentrating on. As I told you at our last meeting and that we discussed that currently Broken Arrow has 2 start times across the district, elementary and secondary. With that, it has caused some issues with having enough drivers. We have a large number of students that are being dropped off 30 minutes prior to school starting, and we have a large number of students that are left on campus before the bus picks them up after school is over. And so within our task force, we have been discussing about going to 3 start times, an elementary, a middle school, and a high school start time. One of the things that we have been finding out is that research is showing that elementary start times best serve students, and best practice is they start first, the earliest, and high school actually would start the latest, which is a flip from what we're doing now. There's a lot of pros and cons to that logistically within our district. One would be Tulsa Tech. They have their schedule pretty set during the day, and there would be some things that we'd have to work out with them as far as the PM Tech students having enough time to take their core students in the morning that are at the high school. If the high school, again, was later, the fine arts and athletics would be released later during the day after a practice, which could have the possibility of conflicting with their work schedule. Our B&A program could be impacted now if the elementary start time was earlier. But again, there's a lot of positives to that too. If we had the 3 start times and looked at some moving those around with different age groups, we could reduce our 30 minutes before school started, those students, by about 900 less for the next school year if we went with something on that schedule. We could reduce the students that are left or have to stay after school more than 30 minutes by about 1,500. So it's there's a lot of positives to it also. Tonight I just want to share with you some of the research-based articles that we've been discussing within the task force. I've asked Ms. Stacy Frisbee to come tonight. She's a parent. She's also a pediatric nurse, and she has been looking at both some scholarly and pediatric journals, and is going to discuss some of the research and what it has shown us. So, Ms. Frisbee, I'll let you come forward.
Good evening. Thank you guys for letting me speak tonight. My name is Stacy Frisbee. I have 3 kids in the district, 1 in the high school and 2 at Highland Park Elementary. I've been a nurse for 17 years, so advocating for kids is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm sure you guys are too, being educators of children. One thing that is obvious to all Americans is that we are all sleep deprived. We tend to underestimate the power of the human body's physiological need for sleep. There's a 24-hour cycle that is caused by the sun called a circadian rhythm that makes us sleep and makes us wake at normal times. Unfortunately, we have been able to trick ourselves into getting out of this rhythm through light bulbs and technology and things that still stimulate us to stay awake. So from 50 years ago, we get 2 hours sleep less per night than we did 50 years ago. And this is across the board for all age groups in adulthood. Ignoring those rhythms is a detriment for physical, intellectual, emotional, and psychological well-being, and particularly in adolescents and children. If you're getting 2 hours less sleep, then you're increasing more things into your day, but what gets eliminated are your hours catching Z's at the end of the day. Preschoolers need 11 to 12 hours of sleep per night. Generally, preschoolers get those hours. School-age kids need about 10 hours of sleep, and those kids generally get their sleep because they tend to want to go to sleep earlier and they tend to wake up earlier naturally. Teenagers need 8.5 to 10 hours of sleep, and their average is 9.25 hours of sleep required. They're not getting anywhere close to this. Adolescents by far are the group that's the most sleep deprived across the board. 70% of American high schoolers don't get the recommended hours of sleep. They're only getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep on average. And what they generally try to do is catch up with their weekend sleep. So they'll sleep 2 extra hours on the weekend. Well, if you're eliminating 2 hours Monday through Friday, you're already behind 10 hours. Adding 2 hours to an 8-hour sleep night only catches you up 4 hours over the weekend. So really, they're still behind, averaging about 8 hours a week. Chronic sleep loss is what happens when teens are not getting enough sleep repeatedly over and over. It's important that we understand that we could get more sleep, and the constellation of benefits that happens if you do have adequate sleep are immense, and they're more than we had realized before. There's so much more research that they've done since even 2005, relating especially with adolescents and sleep, that factor into certain things that we're seeing. Sleep provides restoration and protection. So during those 8 hours to 9 hours of sleep that you're getting at night, you're repairing certain aspects of your brain, you're repairing certain aspects of your physiological body. If you don't have the time to do that, you're getting less restoration and less protection throughout that period of time. Physically, shortened sleep weakens your immune system. We become more vulnerable to disease. There's a National Institutes of Health study that looked at the consequences of inadequate sleep, and it measured how well metabolism and brain function recover after inadequate sleep. What they did was basically made people wake up after 4 to 6 hours of sleep 20 days in a row. And they could see that, first of all, these people started consuming more calories, and the bad kind of calories. And they started having foggy memories. They couldn't keep their thoughts straight. They couldn't keep a train of thought at all, kind of like I'm doing right now. Their daily rhythms were influencing the hormones that are critical for regulating their blood sugar. So their blood sugars were spiking and causing these types of cravings that made them want to eat more food. Chronic sleep loss resulted in an escalation of obesity, diabetes, cardiac disease, and an increased risk of cancer. The cancer risk was particularly interesting because not only do they have an increased risk for cancer, but cancer grows in sleep-deprived patients at twice the rate that it does in general patients that are getting adequate sleep. Other than the physical, there are cognitive effects of not getting enough sleep. It limits your ability to learn, to listen, concentrate, and solve problems due to decreased alertness, decreased memory capacity, and decreased attention. Adequate sleep is critical for memory and learning. Students report difficulty focusing when tired, and in particular, high-level cognitive executive type functions are the ones that adolescents tend to miss when they're in that critical period of evolution and are selectively lost in sleep deprivation. A full night's sleep can provide advantages in learning and memory of 20 to 30% the following day, increase creativity by 60%, and improve learning capacity by 40%. Additionally, when a teenager is sleep deprived, they test as impaired as driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.08%, which is the legal limit in most states to be considered driving under the influence of alcohol. They don't test that for alcohol, just the same level of impairment. So they estimate, the National Safety Transportation Board estimates that 100,000 crashes per year are due to teenagers having insufficient sleep. Psychological aspects, a good night's sleep versus a bad night's sleep is one of the greatest differentials people can have in their quality of life. Almost all mental illnesses also have associated sleep problems. Sleep deprivation predisposes a person to serious psychiatric disorders, and then those psychiatric disorders also disturb your sleep, so it becomes a never-ending cycle. Insufficient sleep increases the risk for depression, substance abuse, anxiety disorders, particularly in teens and young adults. And a number of recent studies highlighted in the September 2014 issue of the Journal of American Academy of Pediatrics focused on the relationship between sleep and suicidal ideation. This is a new one that's been studied, and they cited 3 different articles indicating that sleeping less than 8 hours at night was associated with a 3-fold increase of suicide attempts after controlling for a number of confounding variables. Emotional issues studies repeatedly showed that human beings are terrible at judging how impaired they are by their sleepiness. This carries over to their emotional health as well. So there's a link in the brain that's been proven to basically trigger. They're connected if you get enough sleep, and they tend to disconnect the amygdala and the frontal cortex if you're not getting enough sleep. So what happens is you disrupt that link and you have more emotional outbursts. So you have a mental health component, emotional component, a stability component, and a sleep component. And the sleep can affect the other 3 components. So a lack of patience, shortened fuse, heightened emotions were associated with a disruption in the frontal and the amygdala. And then people become overly emotional and less rational when sleep is shortened. So in teens, this often leads to aggressive or inappropriate behaviors. Teenagers are more likely to develop sleep deprivation because when they hit their puberty ages, I guess like around 13, 14 years of age, they start a hormonal change. And this causes them to delay their onset of sleep cycle by 2 hours. And then it goes back by the time that they hit adult age. But during the teenage years, those hormones make them physiologically not tired till about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Some of you probably have seen this in your own teenagers. I just am not tired. I just am not tired. Well, they're telling the truth. Unfortunately, they still need the 8.5 to 10 hours of sleep. So what happens is that they're going to bed later because they can't go to sleep, but we're asking them to wake up when they're actually getting the best sleep of the entire night, and asking them to be cognitively aware and ready to listen and ready to study. And so that's one of the problems with the start times that are earlier. Early school start times in America, I guess in the 80s is when it trended towards the earlier start times because of transportation costs. They went to more waves and more different start times, and if they could start people earlier, then they would save money on transportation. So kids today sleep an hour less than they did in 1980, and so the doctors from the American Academy of Pediatrics say that chronic sleep loss in adolescence is one of the most common and easily fixable public health issues in the United States. But the school start times are in direct conflict with their biological clocks. The buses pick up a lot of kids at 6:30 a.m., and they don't even get to school till 8 o'clock a.m. We're asking them to get up and be ready to learn, but only 3.8% of the public high schools in the United States start at 9 a.m. or later. Therefore, the AAP released a statement in August recommending that middle schools and high schools start class no later than 8:30 a.m. You might ask what's going to happen to elementary schools if we flip school start times or start the high schoolers later. But sleep deprivation is much lower in school-age children because they wake earlier and they go to bed earlier, and they don't benefit from a later start time from the studies. They also are unaffected by earlier waking and start times, and early in the morning, teachers report that they're generally ready to go and ready to learn earlier in the day, whereas adolescents are ready to learn around 10, 11 o'clock in the day is their peak learning time. Some of the districts that have been moving to later start times show improvement in academic performance, drop in tardiness. One concern that a lot of parents had was, well, if they don't start till later, aren't they just going to go to bed later? And that actually didn't happen in the studies. They showed that they got an additional 55 minutes of sleep throughout, that their bedtimes tended to remain constant. They did have higher test scores, better grades, lower rates of depression, fewer absences, and 70% fewer car crashes in some areas. In Kentucky, they had a 16.8 reduction in car crashes in teenagers that changed their school start times, even though the state as a whole had a 16% increase in car crashes that same year. And then there was an Education Next article that demonstrated that a 1-hour delay in start times increased standardized test scores by 3% in both math and reading. And a meta-synthesis of these articles echoed improvement in school achievement and fewer behavioral problems at school. That's about all I have for research, basically. We all need more sleep. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the main thing that we wanted to present this evening is that this is not just something that we're thinking about or just sounds good, is there's a overwhelming amount of research going on across the country, and a lot of school districts are moving to this type of format. We will be continuing to study that with our instructional time task force. We have not made any definite decision at this time, but did want to bring that to you, gave you a couple of articles if you would like to read, and would be happy to answer any questions.
I noticed that you you added a couple of articles in our packet up here, so but I do appreciate Ms. Frisbee coming up and sharing that information. I tell you, when you begin to really think about it, and we always talk about this as administrators, just flat out just doing what's best for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the data, it is best for kids. I mean, we need to think about even not only just the bus times and when buses begin and end and when our days begin and end. I mean, it's as simple as looking at really what's best for kids in their maturity. So very good information. That was really, really eye-opening actually to me. So
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
The next item under Business Services, Ms. Donna Dollahan.
Good evening. I have 3 items for you tonight. First item is the requested fundraisers for the activity funds. Listed are the purpose for the funds, the dates of the funds, and the estimated profit. I would also like to include that the principal at each school has approved these activities as being needed. So we ask for your approval for these.
Ms. Dollahan, I do want to again extend thank you for the work that the principals do and certainly you do in putting this information together. It's certainly, I think, much easier format, and it's just easier to access and easier to understand, and I appreciate it.
Good.
Any other questions?
recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the requested fundraisers for the school activity funds. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
My next item is approval of the transfers within the activity funds. There is a list for you to look at.
Any questions on these?
Recommend approval.
Second. We have a motion and second to approve the transfers within the activity funds. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
My final item is to ask your approval for the transfer of the BATV subaccount from the high school activity fund to the administrative office activity fund. The BATV staff is now housed at Central on Main, and it would just be more convenient for them to make deposits into the admin activity fund.
Okay. Any questions on this one?
Recommend approval. Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the transfer of the BATV subaccount and funds from the Broken Arrow High School Activity Fund to the Administrative Office Activity Fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Next item on the agenda, Ms. Kathy Menavalis.
Good evening. First item tonight is in regards to our change order report. These change orders are running from November 6th to December 4th of 2014, and I request your approval of those change orders showing a decrease of $111,187.67.
Any questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the change order reports for general fund, cooperative fund, building fund, workers' compensation, bond funds, gift funds, and child nutrition fund for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Next item are the encumbrance reports for all funds, also running from November 6th to December 4th, 2014. And these encumbrance orders total $941,777.48. And I would request your approval of those encumbrance orders.
Are there questions on these?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the encumbrance reports for all funds for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll. Thank you.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item, Mr. Dwayne Thompson.
Okay, you have tonight where we're doing the presentation of the 2013-14 audit report, independent audit and CAFR. Basically, we have Jeff Hewitt here with the auditing firm that did the work. Before he comes up, I just would like to introduce staff. You guys have to stand up. So Kathy Mitchum, Donna Dahlhan, and Natalie Enoff. You get to see Natalie all the time, but there's the rest of them. And basically, I want to just commend them. The CAFR gets put together primarily by them. Kathy is the lead on that, and they all work together. And as we're progressing, we're going to go for the three-peat, the trifecta of the award for this year for the CAFR. But as we go through, we're getting better and better and more timely, which helps Jeff do a more thorough job on his end and be able to answer more questions readily for him. So part of the requirement of the independent audit is to have that presented to the board so you're aware of whatever he wants to disclose to you. And so I will turn it over to him, and then you'll be able to ask him any questions you want.
Wayne said I had about an hour, so. Have an honorable board. Dr. Mendenhall, thanks for having me here this evening, and I will be brief in my comments, as I'm sure toward the end of the meeting, the last you want to hear is a lot of accounting speak. But Wayne kind of stole a lot what I was going to say as far as I wish I could say that we prepared this document for you, but we didn't. I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of time, and I would say outside of Oklahoma City and Tulsa and some of the larger municipalities here in the state, there's not too many excuse me, there's not too many cities that prepare this document, and I could probably count on one hand how many school districts in the state here that prepare this document. So it is something to be proud of. I'm sure you are, and it's a good job that they all do. The only thing that we add are just 2 pages, page 26 and 27, which is the independent auditor's report. Basically states we audited the financial statements at June 30, 2014. Did so in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. It's a paragraph on the management's responsibility for the financial statements, and then our responsibility. And then there's the opinion there on page 26. The opinion, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the assets and liabilities, the financial position of the district as of June 30, 2014. So it is an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion that you could receive. Under a separate cover, there's 2 other reports on internal controls and compliance with laws and regulations. If there was anything that was considered a deficiency that rose to a level of a significant deficiency or material weakness, it would appear on one of those 2 reports. And we didn't note any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. There's just one item which we mentioned in a management letter, which I think you have a copy of, concerning the fixed assets. And the district has procedures in place that account for, identify, and value the fixed assets. So the amount that's on the financial statements is fairly stated. It's just the part of going out to find the fixed assets is kind of cumbersome or difficult. And that's where we'd recommend that there's maybe software, maybe some more procedures, or even some additional staff in that area could be, to make sure that whenever you record the fixed assets, you know exactly where they are. This would enable also a control procedure to be put in place that at any given time you'd be able to pull up a school and know where all those fixed assets are located quickly and efficiently. So I know the district has been working in that area, but I could just recommend they continue to move in that area as well. The district, the management, has good policies and procedures in place and do a good job with those. The internal controls are an ongoing process. So if there's an area that needs to be looked at, the management does that and addresses that situation. Overall, they pay a lot of good attention to detail and they do a good job. So overall, it was a good audit. Do we have any questions about anything?
Mr. Hewitt, thank you very much.
Well,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We need a motion to.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the receipt of the annual independent audit and CAPRA for fiscal year 2013-14 as presented by Mr. Hewitt with Sanders, Bledsoe, and Hewitt. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Okay, the next item is for, to consider allowing Claims Compensation Bureau to handle a claim on behalf of the district. There was a lawsuit filed and was settled related to the U.S. Food Service, and it dated from 1998 to December of 2005. And so they basically contacted and said, did you use that vendor in that period of time for food service, which we did, to the tune of about $200,000. So basically we will send them that information. They will then file the claim on our behalf. Any proceeds that we receive, they would take for their services 30%, and whatever else we get, when we will be able to deposit that back into the Child Nutrition Fund. We don't have the capacity to file the claim on our own, so this, if we don't proceed, then there's nothing gained, nothing lost, because it's not going to cost us anything if there's nothing recovered. So it's just an opportunity just to participate in that settlement offer if our invoices and so forth allow for that.
Any questions? I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the claim service agreement between Broken Arrow Public Schools and Claims Compensation Bureau, LLC, as the exclusive agent for the district in claim filing and management process in a current class action litigation against U.S. Food Service. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item is under new business. Seeing that we do not have any, we're going to move to the next item, which is the executive session.
Make a motion, we move to executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and second to move to executive session pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B1 and 7 of the Oklahoma Meeting Act to discuss the performance evaluation and contract of the superintendent. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, we need to return to open session.
Make a motion, move to open session.
Second.
We have a motion
You gotta
and a
wait for
second.
Ms. Karen.
Say that again.
You gotta wait for Ms. Karen to get
I
ready.
will. We have a motion and a second to return from executive session. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Will the board clerk please read the minutes of the executive session?
The Board of Education entered into executive session at 7:43 to 7:55, and Dr. Mendenhall entered the meeting at 7:55 to discuss the performance evaluation and contract of the superintendent pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B1 and 7 of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act. The Board of Education returned to open session at 8:19 p.m. This constitutes the minutes of the executive session.
The next item on the agenda is to deal with the superintendent contract.
I move that the district's current employment contract with the superintendent be amended effective July 1st, 2015, to provide that the term of the contract is extended to June 30th of 2018. And I further move that the board president and the board clerk be authorized to execute an appropriate employment contract to effectuate such extension.
Second.
We have a motion and second to extend the superintendent's employment contract to read from 2015 through 2018, to authorize the board president and board clerk to execute an appropriate employment contract to effectuate such extension. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the performance stipend.
I move that the superintendent be paid a one-time performance incentive stipend under the terms of his employment contract with the district in the amount of $13,141.84, subject to all lawful withholdings, but with such performance incentive stipend to be paid in December of 2014.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the payment of a performance stipend within the terms discussed in an executive session, and want to make certain that you have the amount noted.
I did not get it.
$13,141.84.
Okay.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Whoops. Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.